Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A, answering your most pressing catamaran sailing questions. In today's session, we are going to be talking about why do Hobies have problems with the cams inverting. We're going to be looking at what is the best way to put the brakes on and start sailing backwards. Yes, I love to sail backwards. And we are going to be looking at something quite specific about gooseneck slider problems that you might have on a Hobie 16 or 14. We're going to be looking at the benefits of a loose-footed mainsail over a traditional mainsail that feeds into the boom. And we're going to look at how to stop your spinnaker collapsing. But first, we are going to kick off with a question from Eric in Florida, where Eric he's experienced a strange telltale issue on his mainsails. So I'll read the question. In fact, the sails are rather old. Okay, so that could be a source of the issue right there, a potential source, because as sails get older, the shape kind of goes a bit out. So they're not going to be as easily able to accurately tune as new sails, because a new sail will be really uniform, the shape, whereas an old sail, like especially a sail that's like 30 or 40 years old, it might have stretched quite a lot, which means certain parts of the sail might be a lot fuller than other parts of the sail, which means to be able to sheet the sail correctly to get the telltales flying nicely is going to be much more difficult. All right, so Eric says, I've got 2 telltales on the jib. Right, I've actually put 3 on here. Okay, 3 on the main. I had the windward, all of the windward telltales flicking up at about 45 degrees. Okay, do we know how much wind we were talking here? Okay, but all right, so if the windward telltales are coming up at about 45 degrees, so on here windward is green, so that would look like this, which, to be honest, is pretty normal for a strong wind. Like as the wind gets stronger, it becomes less likely that you're able to sheet the mainsail in enough. The mainsail, definitely sheet the mainsail in enough to get the telltales absolutely parallel like this. So they will start going up at 45 degrees. So what this indicates also is that if the windward telltales are lifting, there is no chance that the sail is in too tight. Okay, so here's 3 scenarios that could be going on with our telltales. Again, the green one is the one on the windward side of the boat. The red one is the one on the leeward side of the sail. So what we're ideally, for absolute perfect airflow around the sail, we are looking for both telltales flying straight back, because what that tells us is, if on our sails down here, so red is port, which is this side, green is starboard, which is this side. So if both telltales are flying straight back, what that means is that we've got an even flow of air going over both sides of the sail. Yes. So if the sail is in too tight, then what's going to happen is the windward one, which in this example, the red one, is going to start lifting If the sail is in too tight, a deliberate mistake there. If the sail is in too tight, what we'll have is the leeward one, which is the green one, lifting, or more likely than lifting, it might actually be just swirling around doing weird things. And if the sail is in too tight, the windward one is going to be flying straight back. So most important with your telltales at all times is to make sure the outside one, so in this example, on the boat here, which is the opposite to, is it the opposite? Yes, the opposite to here. The outside one on here are the red ones. So we want the red ones flying straight back at all times. Having the sail in too tight is actually going to slow the boat down more than having the sail out too much. So outside telltales are always the most important. All right, that is phase one. All right, so continuing with Eric's story. All leeward telltales except one were straight back. Okay, so normally you'd think, or if it was a boat with just one sail, you would definitely think that is, if one of the leeward telltales isn't flying straight back, that would be because that part of the sail is in too tight. But we've established if the windward telltales are lifting slightly, it is impossible for the mainsail to be in too tight. So what could it be? It will be some sort of weird backwinding deflection kind of thing coming from the jib. All right. Because Eric says the lower leeward mainsail telltale was pointing straight up, which would possibly be because of the jib slot. The jib leech was fluttering on the upper 1/3 above 13 knots, but that telltale was pointing up at all speeds. The jib blocks were in the middle. All right. So what this leads us to believe, we're doing a bit of Sherlock Holmes style, what went on here kind of thing. So what Eric's got is this lower telltale here, inside one, like we've said, flying up at 45 degrees, definitely not oversheeted, but the outside one, which is the red one, is flying directly upwards. So what that tells us, if this one, because this one, it still has the jib overlapped with it. So if this one is flying straight back, it means the jib in that position isn't affecting the airflow on the mainsail. But so what this suggests is that the bottom part of the jib is in too tight. All right. So what can we do about the bottom part of the jib being in too tight? But the weird thing is that Eric says the telltales on the jib were looking all right. So how can this be that the jib is in too tight? Well, what it is it's in too tight in relation to the mainsail. You could have all of the telltales on the jib flying perfectly, but if the mainsail is out more as a percentage than the jib, in fact, we need more board space here. I hope everybody's into this, because this is I had to really think about this one. It's a bit of a tricky one. All right, we're just going to have straight sails. So let's just think about how all right, so we've established that the bottom part of the jib is in too tight for the mainsail. So one very quick fix for this, because what's happening is the wind. So this would be the bottom part of the jib. It's in too much, which means the wind, like, of course, this will be curved in real life. The wind is coming into the jib, and then the jib is deflecting the wind at the bottom into the back of the mainsail, to kind of square, which means that wind there is going to be very turbulent, which means the bottom telltale, or the telltale where that is happening with the jib, is not going to be flying correctly. Now, why would it happen at the bottom and not the top? Because as we go up the sail, like Eric said, he's got his jib set in the middle hole on the chain plate, which means if you have your jib sheet set in the middle or lower down, it means the leech, the back edge of the sail, is going to be more open as we go higher up, which means this effect, like if we have another bit of the jib, like the top of the jib, so this is the bottom of the jib, the top of the jib would be more like this, because the jib is twisting as we go further up. Everybody with me? Which means the higher part of the sail isn't going to have this back winding effect, only the lower part of the sail. As well as messing up the telltales, what this could also do is it could make the mast rotate the wrong way by diverting the wind so hard onto the back of the mainsail. But we still haven't addressed how can we fix this. The quickest, easiest fix at the time would be to let the jib traveller out. What's that? You haven't got a jib traveller? In that case, just ease the jib sheet out just until you see, kind of weirdly, ease the jib until you see the bottom outside telltale on the main flying straight back. There we are. Because it's going to be better to have the jib eased a little bit rather than having this turbulent airflow over the lower part of the mainsail on the leeward side. What else could we do? So that would be the on the move kind of quick fix, if you like. What else could we do? We're wanting to open up the bottom part of the jib, moving the jib clew position, the back bottom corner of the sail. So the clew position, if it's pulling down too much, that is going to close the leech, making this effect more. If we have it pulling directly in line so that the leech, the back edge, and the foot, the bottom edge, is pulling evenly, that is going to be optimal for a lighter wind. But then in a stronger wind, we want to open up the leech on the jib. So we're opening up this gap between the leeward side of the mainsail and the jib, which is known as the slot. We want to open that up, which means we want to be pulling back more with the jib sheets, which means moving the jib sheet position on the clew further down. Another way that we can do this is actually to move the tack, the front bottom corner of the jib, down on our adjuster at the front. So the lower down we have it, the more of this green line effect we're going to have, where we're opening up the leech. The higher up we have it, it's going to lead more towards the leech getting tighter, which is going to be leading to this back winding effect. All right. Yeah, I've just seen Archie in the live chat said rake. Yes, mast rake could certainly be an effect here. I'm just focusing on the sails at the moment. One thing that it could also be, especially if you're running an older set of sails. Now, this might be pushing the boat out a little bit here, but if you're running an older set of sails, what might be the state of the battens? Do we think the battens will be quite even in how in the amount of curve in the battens? No, it's more likely the battens are going to be uneven. So if the bottom batten in the jib is very soft, what that's going to do is put more curvature into the bottom of the jib, which again is going to lead to this problem. All right. But as Archie said, if we put more mast rake on the boat, that is also going to help to open that up at the bottom, putting more twist into the jib without actually having to adjust either the clew or the tack. So, solutions in order. I would firstly just lay the jib out flat on the floor and see if the bottom of the jib, the bottom batten in the jib, has got a lot of curve in it. So if when you lay the sail on the floor, if the bottom batten is looking like this, then that's too much curve. So what we ideally need is a slightly stiffer batten, or if there's loads of tension in the batten, to ease it off, but without risking putting creases into the batten pocket. So that would be number one. Number two would be to move the clew position down one on the jib sheets. The third thing would be, because we don't want to go to the extreme, the bottom hole on the clew plate, because that restricts our ability to really control the shape of the sail. The leech is always going to be really open. And then the third thing that I would do, just to address this issue specifically, would be to move the tack of the jib down by one hole on the stay adjuster at the front. Okay, so that is what I think for that. So thanks very much, Eric. I hope that is of some sort of help. And at this point in the game, I'm just going to check in with everybody who's checking in. So taking line honours today in the live chat, we've got Mr. Tony KP in Ebeltoft, Denmark. Nice to have you on board as always. Then we've got Fawn G on board. Nice to have you with us. And then we've got Remsic 8. Remsic 8. Wow, live stream. Yes, live stream. Yes, we did kick off a little bit late because somebody pressed the wrong button. All right, then we've got Ryan on board in Maui. Let's go. Honeycat Friday is here. My telltales told me I was going too fast when they disappeared, when they just got ripped off the sail. Yes. All right. All right. Remsicate says this is awesome. Thank you very much. Glad you think so. Fawn G says hello from windy Baltic Sea. Nice to have you with us. Archie's on board. Great to have you on board, Archie. Is that Archie who I think it is? Answers on a postcard. We've got Joe on board from Hilton Head. Hilton Head, of course, the venue which I'm going to be hitting twice towards the back end of the summer. Yes, I will be in Hilton Head for the week prior to the Formula 18 Americas Championships, which is, I should have this written down really, in September, around the middle of September. I'm going to be there for 5 days, and I am offering one-to-one coaching sessions for you and your boat. This is quite a unique thing to actually, rather than to go to a coaching session where you sit amongst a load of other people and someone like me says, do this, and then they shout at you from a speedboat. No, I'll actually be coming with you on your boat to do coaching in real life. And before we do the coaching, there's the opportunity that I take a look at your boat with you and we optimize your boat before we hit the water. So that will be for 5 days before the American Formula 18 Championships in Hilton Head, South Carolina, USA. Then I'll be hitting Hilton Head again in October, towards the end of October, for a 2-day race clinic where, yes, I'll be saying do this to get better results. And that race clinic will be followed by what can only be described as the most fun and most accessible regatta of the season. So it really is the perfect regatta to attend if for anybody of any level. So if you've already sailed in the Olympic Games and you won silver, then you're in for a great time. If you never raced before, but you feel like it's something you really want to do, then this is a great opportunity to get on the race course for your first time, especially with that clinic going on before the regatta starts. So that is at the end of October, that one. So 2 opportunities in Hilton Head, South Carolina, USA. Nice. So much fun. Great place. Nice sandy beach. Loads of space, which is always nice. All right. Yeah, Joe says, hate soft battens. There's a time and a place for soft battens, but having a softer batten, yeah. I'll stop with that there before we go down. All right, Eric is actually on board. Nice to have you with us, Eric. Thanks for the insight. All right, we've got Kite Winds 663. Hello, sailors. All right, nice to have you with us. All right, Greg is on board in San Diego. Great to see you, Greg. I hope you're having a good time and you've got a full power weekend ahead of you. Very good conditions, by the way, here in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece at the moment. Yeah, some really strong wind. And yesterday I was out filming. It was, I would say, the hardest sailing session I have ever done, which might sound a little bit, that's a bit soft. Come on, what did you do? So it's a new format of video that if everybody's into the format, I'm going to make more of the same style, but it's where I go out and I do 20 of something in quick succession. So what did I do on the FX1? The channel members will know, they already have access to the video. It's very good. I did 20 wire-to-wire tacks in a row, getting the boat up to speed again on the upwind point of sail after each tack, and then pretty much immediately going into another tack. And yeah, very, very hard work indeed for me. For young people, it would be less. Like for Archie Adams, it would be nothing at all. He's young, fit and healthy. I'm knocking on a bit now, so it was pretty hard work. But yeah, really good exercise. 20 tacks back to back, getting the boat up to speed afterwards. And what I've done on the video from that is I've actually put a timer on, like a tack timer, to see how long each tack actually takes. Great exercise there. I think everyone should try that one. All right, we have got Random in Seattle on board. Greetings from the PNW. You might have to help me with what that means. All right, and then we've got Onga Bunga 999. How much will my mast rake change my telltale adjustability? Crikey, that is a... Yeah, so what raking the mast back will do, if we look at raking the mast back for the jib, so let's say this is our, we've still got our sheeting angle from before, okay, and this is with, let's say this is with the mast as far up as we would have it. So the sheeting angles, like if we look at let's just go for the middle one. this line is kind of optimal. Even leech and foot tension in the sail. Then when we rake that back, let's see what's happening. It is opening the leech of the sail and tightening the foot, which is exactly what we want to be doing as the wind is getting stronger. What will that actually do for your telltales? It means when your jib sheet is in, the lower, like, again, all of your outside telltales should be flying evenly. And if we're talking upwind, when the jib is sheeted tight, you're sailing, steering the boat to your telltales on your jib. And when it's windy and you've got your mast raked back a little bit more, you want to be steering the boat to the bottom telltales on the jib, because not all of the telltales are going to be doing the same thing. Because we've opened the leech by raking the mast back, what's going to happen is if this is our inside telltales, bottom one is going to be lifted a bit because it's a bit windy. So I've been through this thing of the jib telltales paradox before, where we don't want the inside telltales flying straight back like that. We want them lifted a bit. Bottom one lifting a bit, next one lifting more, top one, if you've got three, lifting even more, because as we go up the sail, it's got more twist in it, which means the top of the sail is much more open than the bottom of the sail, much like the wing of a bird, which apparently is quite efficient. That's what the birds tell me. That is what we would expect with our telltales as we rake the mast back more. Then on the mainsail, we would have a similar effect because we're moving our sheeting angle on the mainsail as well. And the reason we're raking the rig back more is because it's a stronger wind. So again, the sail is going to have more twist in it as the wind gets stronger. We could go into this quite deep, but we have got a fully loaded session today. So I'm going to, if I may, I'm going to park that one there. All right. So Joe from Hilton Head says the multi-hull, is that the regatta, Joe, or is that the training starting September 21st? If you come back to me on that, that'd be great. All right. So Archie says, it is Archie that I'm thinking of. This is Archie, who was working on the Wildwind Beach the last years. Very nice guy. Hope Sulla is going well on your side of the world. Yes, very good. And thanks for tuning in. Great to hear from you. All right, we've got C1 Chaser, which might be Cloud Chaser in YouTube talk. Joe, you're the daddy. Okay, love your content. My first Q&A, great stuff. And it's great to have you on board. Glad you could make it. All right. Random in Seattle says PNW means Pacific Northwest region of North America. Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, so on to the next question in the live chat. And what's quite nice, this next question is completely different. It's nice to go on to a slightly different topic after doing a reasonable dive into another topic, which we just did. There we are. All right. So this is from 85NP85, of course. And it is the question which has frustrated Hobie sailors for millions of years. And what it is all right. First thing, I haven't actually got a rudder cam to hand in here, but top of the rudder stock is shaped like this. And what we have in the rudder stock, the way that the rudder locks down, I'm sure many of you know this, is we have a rudder cam, which would look in the up position, doing it in red just for a bit of contrast. It would look something like this. And then when the cam is locking the rudder down, it is 90 degrees from there. So it'd be kind of like this, because in the tiller arm, in the top of the tiller arm, there is what is called the cam stop plate, which basically locates in here. And that is actually the thing that locks the rudder in the down position. Now, the only way the rudder can lock down is if before you go to put your rudders down, the cam is in this upright position, facing upwards. And then as you're locking the rudders down, the cam rotates down into this position so the rudder can lock. And then the idea is when you lift the rudder, which could be by lifting the tiller arm, that should be enough. The cam stop plate going upwards should be enough to flick the cam back into the up position, getting it ready to go down the next time. However, as many of you will have experienced, this is not always the case. And it's not necessarily because of how it's adjusted. Yes, we can adjust the tension that is holding the rudder cam, because in this part of the rudder stock, there is a spring which goes to what's called a plunger. It's what the Hobie cat call it, a plunger, which basically locates in the cam to hold it in position. And then at the bottom of the spring, there is a plastic screw where we can adjust the tension on the spring. All right. So that is the setup for what is going on. Now, why is it that sometimes when you lift the rudder, especially if you lift it by lifting the tiller arm, the cam doesn't return to its starting position? Okay, now this could be that you've got too much tension in the screw at the bottom and you've just wound it up really, really tight. Perhaps you absolutely didn't want the rudder coming up when you're going fast. This is something that we've done in the past, and it is not the way. If your rudder is kicking up when you're going fast and you need to have the screw adjustment tightened up literally as tight as it will go, that is not the way. Because what you're doing there, if you tighten that up as much as it will go, is you're actually stopping the spring from being a spring. You're compressing it totally, which means that the spring just becomes a solid piece of metal and it doesn't actually work. That's when your rudder cams really feel like they do not want to move. So you don't want to have your screw over tightened. If your rudder's kicking up too early, it will generally be, if there's a reasonable amount of tension on the screw, which I would say as a starting point, we can't quite see in there, as a starting point, having the screw flush with the bottom of the casting where it screws into, that's pretty much the same for all Hobie rudder castings. That is a good starting point. But if there is excessive play in the rudder stock between the rudder blade and the rudder stock, so if it's able to move from side to side, there's going to be excessive amounts of load on the rudder blade, which means it's going to kick up earlier, because the system is designed that the rudder comes up if it hits something under the water, like if it hits a bit of driftwood or if it hits the bottom, something like that. So that is reason one. Too much play this way. You might have play in between the rudder pin and the gudgeon on the back of the boat where the whole thing can move like that. Again, that is going to put excessive load on the rudder blade, which is going to get it to pop up sooner than you want it to pop up. Okay, third reason it might pop up too soon is if your rudder isn't, when it's locked down, is able to come back like this. By having the rudder blade back too much, this is what leads to having very heavy steering, and this is something else which is going to get it to pop up too early. Okay, but let's say you've got your rudder set up perfectly, and you haven't got excessive cam tension, but whenever you lift the rudder by or unlock the cam by lifting the tiller arm, the cam stays in the down position. Why is this? Unfortunately, this is because of wear to the system. When this and it's basically this hole that goes through here, because when it's all new, the hole is the perfect size for the pin that goes through the cam. And because it's the perfect size, it means it stays in the correct position. The cam is free to rotate on that pin. But as this hole gets elongated over time, which is something that happens, what happens is the cam gets kind of locked onto the pin, and then the pin actually does the rotating along with the cam, which just grinds away at this, which means that it's not working as it should, which means that the cam is much more likely to stay down. What can you do about this? You could change your pin for the kind of, I don't know what you call them actually. They're like flat screws that go in from either side and hold the cam flush. Still not ideal because it's going to move around a bit, but better than using, I believe Hobie call it the cotter pin for the cam there. What else can we do? We can make sure that the system is well lubricated. Get some waterproof grease in there to make sure that the cam can move as it should. Okay, so that is why the rudder cams on older boats are more likely to stay down. Now, the solution that we use here at Wildwind Sailing Holidays, where we have about 30 catamarans, 2 rudders each, so we can't afford to replace all of the rudder castings, is the moorings where we leave the boats. The water is deep enough, like waist deep, which means that we leave the rudders down until we're off the boat, and then we lift the rudders by just pulling the rudder blade to the back, simulating hitting the bottom, which rotates the cam upright every single time. So not really a solution there, but the why is there. All right, we're going to jump back in to the live chat. Cheers. All right. So where did we get up to? Okay. Yeah. So Joe in Hilton Head says, training with Joe, that's me, Joe, not you, Joe, is for 5 days from September the 12th through to September the 16th, the week prior to the F18 Americas. Any type of beach cat, just because there's an F18 event next week, doesn't mean that the training is just on F18s. Whatever type of cat you've got, if you want to basically feel like you know that boat better than you've ever known it before, then yes, you can sign up for a half day, which would be like 3 hours coaching with me at that event at Hilton Head. And what we're going to do is we're still kind of fleshing out the plan a little bit, But what we're going to do is at the end of each day, we're actually going to hold a live Q&A live, which maybe I should actually broadcast it on Joyrider TV. I think that's a pretty good idea. What do you think? Perhaps a broadcasted live Q&A from Hilton Head, where I'll be answering the questions of all of the sailors. So it'll be a nice time to take your boat to Hilton Head for 4 days, do half a day's coaching. I'd say the smart money is get one of the earlier slots in the week, because then you can benefit from what you've learned for the rest of the week. Nice. It'll be a really good time. So that is going on. Very good. Okay. And Joe, the organizer of the event, says you can come for 1 day or 5 days in a row if you really want to bond with Joyrider Joe. Oh, yes. There will be talking in the evenings, loose chat, let's call it. All right, nice. We've got Tom on board. Tom, who you can see quite a lot of action from on the Joyrider Worldwide YouTube channel. Tom is a great trimaran sailor. And Tom says, I use jib telltales for steering purposes. On the main, I dispense with them and go with the leech telltales. Yeah, which is similar to what we do on the bigger boats like the Formula 18 or the Tornado. Although the others can be helpful in setting the Traveller. Yeah, so the leech telltales on the mainsail are really good because they give you an immediate snapshot of what your airflow is doing. Very handy indeed. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole just now because we've got plenty to talk about. All right, and then Joe from Hilton Head continues. The 2-day clinic with Joe is October 21st and 22nd before the Hilton Head multi-hull event, which I'm liking to call the 51st anniversary regatta. I think it has a ring to it. It's not my place to name an event, but there we go. All right, Cloud Chaser says, does the Tiger have these rudders? Yes, the Hobie Tiger has, it is the same rudder system, but on the Hobie Tiger, because this would be from a Hobie 16, 14 or Dragoon, this is an older system, whereas the Hobie 18, 17, FX1 Tiger, Fox, Hobie 15 has an open casting system, which does work much better for longer. So this inverted cam problem is much less likely to be an issue on a boat like a Tiger. Which the other thing with the Tiger, like, why is it? This is a question that everybody is asking, except they're not. Is why is it that on a boat like a Hobie 14 or 16, that the rudders are under so much more pressure than on a boat like a Tiger, or this is not a Tornado today, this is a Prindle 18-2, or on a Prindle 18-2. Why is there more pressure on the rudders on a Hobie 16? It's because there is much less boat taking the pressure of the boat getting pushed sideways, that leeway kind of pressure. There's loads of pressure on the rudders from that on a Hobie 16 or 14 or a boat that has very little hull in the water. Whereas on something like a Tiger, which has got a significant amount of hull sitting beneath the water, you've also got dagger boards helping to prevent that sideways push, means there's less load on the rudders, which means to have the rudders set up correctly or optimally to stop them from kicking up, like, you don't need as much tension in the cam on a boat like this. So less of a problem. There we go. Happy days. All right. Oh, we've got Joseph Tobin. Oh, another Joe. Another Joe. All right, I think this is Joe with a different login. I think, who says if you want to come, this is Hilton Head again. If you want to come without your boat, there are a selection of boats to that you can use for a coaching session. So you could do what I do and fly into Savannah, Georgia. It's then a relatively short drive to get to the competition, the event area, let's call it. All right, we've got Hans on board. Hans in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece. On the way back to Germany. Oh, on the way back from Germany. That sounds a bit more promising. And then we've got Jens on board. Says, hey, boys. All right, nice to have you on board, Jens. I'm sure that you'll be heading this way fairly shortly. All right, next preloaded question. And this one comes from Leo, who I believe is in the Netherlands, who says, what is the best way to put the brakes on and get the boat into the reverse gear to sail backwards? All right. Here we go. Here's the boat. So why might you want to do this in the first place? Let's see. Why might you want to back the boat up? A good reason, or a reason that I use quite often would be like if I want to put the boat, like if I'm up here and I want to reverse the boat so that I can put it onto this buoy, this mooring, then what I would do is crank the main sheet in. Like you can release the jib totally, crank the main sheet in as hard as it will go, even if it's windy. Crank that bad boy in. That's going to bring the boat all the way head to wind with a little bit of help from the rudders. Then really pay attention to keeping the boat pointing directly into the wind. I feel that I'm going to do a video on this fairly soon because I love sailing backwards and I think everybody else should do as well. Pull the main sheet in, get the boat into the wind. As soon as the boat is into the wind, release the main sheet because you don't want that interfering with our course. And then you're going to, depending on the strength of the wind, you're going to start getting blown backwards, which means when you're going backwards, the rudders become very sensitive because your pivot is actually at the wrong end of the rudder. So the pivot would normally be at the front of the rudder, which means the rudder is naturally getting pushed kind of straight. Whereas when you're going backwards, pivot at the wrong end. So the water is trying to push the rudder over to one side or the other. So you've really got to grab hold pretty hard and really be assertive with the steering to keep it going straight. And the aim there is to keep the boat pointing into the wind. Like if you notice that the front of the boat is drifting off the wind at all, then you need to put the rudders, of course, the rudders are working in reverse here, the other way, to get the boat to still be pointing pretty much into the wind. In a lighter wind, a good way to get the boat into the wind to start going backwards would actually be to grab the boom, pull that bad boy right into the middle of the boat, and that is really going to help to get the boat up into the wind. In a fairly tight spot. So let's say we've got obstructions like here and here, and we want to get the boat in here backwards. Like perhaps there's not, you feel that it would be difficult to come in forwards. Maybe the water is really deep until you actually hit the shore. Maybe it's like a grass bank or something. So to actually come in stop the boat and be able to hold the boat would be near impossible. So coming in backwards, if the wind is on, is the only solution. Then what I would do is directly upwind from the middle of this area, turn the boat into the wind, again, sails loose, and before the boat starts going backwards, lift both rudders all the way, get them locked in the up position, and then helm and crew on the bows so that you're lifting the sterns. And then what that means, by being on the bows, lifting the sterns, it means that this section of the hull is then acting as your rudder because you've put that in the water. So it's keeping that part of the boat straight as it goes backwards. And your rudders are up. If you've got dagger boards, lift those bad boys up as well. If this is a grassy bank, which is not too much higher up than the water level, then until the back of your boat has actually gone onto the grass bank, you could then run to the back of the boat, grab it, and just drag it up onto the grass to secure the boat. Great bit of boat handling there. Good seamanship. Sail your boat backwards. Yeah, it helps in many situations. All right, so next one. This is from Sebastian. You may have seen actually quite recently, I have unveiled my new set of sails, the black Super R set of sails from Whirlwind Sails. And yes, they look absolutely amazing. And yes, they feel absolutely amazing to sail with. And I really do believe that you've got, with these Super R sails, you've got more kind of like scope to change your sail shape than you would do with a regular sail on a Hobie 16. Now, all right, so I think I'm actually, rather than answering Sebastian's question here, I'm going to answer Eric's next question, because that kind of leads on from this. What are the benefits from having a loose-footed sail? So if this is our sail, there's two ways that the bottom of the sail, the first way would be like on something like a Dart 18, would actually be that there's no boom at all. So zero management. So in that situation, it's the bottom batten which is really taking care of the shape in the bottom of the sail. And as well as the bottom batten, the mast rake is actually going to alter the shape of the bottom of the sail more than if you've got a boom, because if let's get something that will, all right, yeah, this is our main sheet blocks here. So the main sheet is anchored to this position here. So with the mast in this position, or let's go even further upright, the main sheet is very much pulling straight down, which is going to put quite a lot of curve into the sail. Now, what happens when we rake the mast back? This is still pulling from the same spot. This is quite extreme, but what it's doing is it's pulling more evenly, which is going to tighten up the foot of the sail. So even if you don't have a boom, it is possible to tighten the foot of the sail by increasing the amount of mast rake that you have. And incidentally, increasing the tension in the downhaul is going to have a similar effect. As you pull the downhaul tighter, whatever your boom or boomless system is, as you pull the downhaul tighter, that is going to automatically tighten up the foot of the sail. Very nice. Okay, but the traditional sail on a 16 and on many types of boat is where the bottom of the sail actually feeds in to a track on the boom. So what is the benefit of that? I'm not sure that there is actually any benefit in that as a system. It makes it quite secure at the bottom, but it's generally a method that is used on older boats. Right, just getting a warning message about the live stream there. Not quite so sure what that means. I'm just going to ignore it. Yeah, so with the, let's call it the tight-footed sail, where it's threaded into the bottom of the boom, you are very limited in your ability to change the shape of the bottom of the sail. And we're only really talking about up to the bottom batten, maybe halfway to the second batten. That's the part of the sail that we're really adjusting here. You can flatten it somewhat, but not totally. And if you try to put more curve into the sail, then what you're likely to get is a load of vertical creases going down here, which isn't very nice. So you can only loosen it so much. Whereas with a loose-footed mainsail, you could set the bottom of your mainsail really curved, which is going to give you loads of power low down, which is for a speed run. Yes, I think the loose-footed sail on 16 should lead to higher speeds, and that's before we even talk about the top of the sail. It will also, so more curve is going to help you in certain situations, and then having the ability to easily flatten the bottom of the sail is going to help when you're sailing upwind in a strong wind, and you're going to be able to get that flatter than with a tight-footed system. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go on to Sebastian's question here, so when I used the new sail for the first time, because of the dimensions of the sail, I had a problem that where the gooseneck was located, the gooseneck is the part at the front of the boom on a 16, which has a metal slider, which I'm pretty sure I don't have one here, which goes into the mast. So, and as you'll know, your mast, here's your mast track, has an opening on one side to allow the gooseneck to go in. Yeah, everybody with me there? I hope so. All right, so the problem that Sebastian has got is he is putting a European-made Hobie 16 sail on an old American Hobie 16. And what I am guessing is that the opening for where the gooseneck goes is in completely the wrong position, which would mean that when the sail is up, let's do it in another color. When the sail is up with no tension on it, the tack of the sail is sitting somewhere like that, which means that when you put your gooseneck in, which would be like this, as soon as you pull the downhaul on a little bit, there's no mast track to support the gooseneck. What can you do? This is a tricky one. Yeah, there's the thing that springs to mind, and this is actually what I was initially thinking to do to fix my issue, was and my issue isn't because of the actual position of the tack of the sail. It's because my mast on Bad Boy 95 is quite worn below the gooseneck. So it's actually opened up a little bit, which would normally mean I'd usually pull the sail down beyond that, because there's only like an inch difference, but that inch made enough of a difference that the gooseneck popped out. So my fix with the Super Art, very easy and effective, is I actually used a piece of Dyneema to go onto the gooseneck. This is an exaggeration, like that, and the boom was down here, so a bit of a gap between the bottom of the sail and the boom. But of course, with a traditional sail, you can't do that. So what can we do? My only think of the fix for this would be to actually get a second gooseneck slider and bolt them together. These gooseneck sliders are hollow in the middle. Put a bolt down through the middle of the gooseneck slider, which would make it twice as long. And then that should, if the opening in the mast is big enough to allow them to go in, which actually you might have to rethink how you rig your boat. So you might need to leave the boom actually located in the mast permanently and just thread the sail onto the boom each time you put it up. Little bit of a slightly more painful operation in rigging, but it could be the fix that you need. There we go. All right, so back into the live chat. By the way, we've been going for over an hour now. A great way of, if you've been appreciating this solid gold information that's coming your way, a great way of showing your appreciation and support for Joyrider TV would be to use the super chat, which is located just next to the chat window. You just click on that and make a small donation to the cause. What is the cause? The cause is we're keeping the Q&A ad free. I believe that apart from Google, nobody likes the ads. Maybe the advertisers like the ads. You don't want the ads. You don't want to have to click skip ad. So that is what we're trying to achieve here. And there is the Colonel in with a super sticker. Thank you very much to Colonel Failure there. Colonel Failure happens to be my brother, who also makes high quality YouTube videos on the topic of hilarious gaming. Check out Colonel Failure on YouTube for hilarious gaming. That's it. Yeah, give us a super sticker or super chat and I will plug your channel. There we go. But plugging your channel can sound like something completely different, which is not what we're talking about here. No channel plugging. All right. So where are we up to? Oh, we were in the live chat. Yeah. So Eric says, I have failed sailing backwards every time I've tried and end up yawing too much. Would that be like dipping the back of the boat in? And those main sheet battens start driving me forwards. I look forward to your video on this. Yeah, another thing with going backwards is let your downhaul off first. If you let your downhaul off first, all the shape is going to come out of your mainsail, which means that the main battens aren't going to start pulling you forwards. And like when you're going backwards, if you find, here we are, we're going backwards. If you find you're coming off course a little bit, especially in that scenario that we were talking about going into a beach, if you start coming off course, then all you need to do is get back on the boat. If you've been on the bows, shouldn't happen if you're on the bows, but get back on the boat, pull the main sheet in or pull the boom to get the mainsail right into the middle, and that will pull you back into the wind.